Welcome to another episode of Show Me Your Tech Stack. This week, we're going to be featuring the CTO of Supered, Steve. I'm so excited to welcome Supered Steve. Let's deal these cards and see what's in his founder's tech stack. Hey, Steve, welcome to the Show Me Your Stack podcast. I am so excited to interview you. I have the luxury of working with you every day, but I don't get to talk to you one-on-one. And I don't get an insight of how your brain works, what's in your tech stack. So I'm so excited to have you as a guest today. I'm going to let you introduce yourself, and then we'll jump into your tech stack.
Awesome. Thanks, Ashley. I'm super excited to be here. Hello, audience. I'm Steve Bussey. I'm the co-founder and CTO of Supered. You've probably heard of Supered because you're listening to our podcast now, but I'll do a quick pitch. Basically, Supered is transforming how service companies do delivery, and we're also helping teams learn and adopt HubSpot better. So we're really focused on the HubSpot ecosystem, HubSpot partners, although we're not tied to the HubSpot ecosystem solely.
Love it. All right, let's shuffle up these cards. We're going to play a couple hands of poker. I'm going to count down your favorite tech stacks. We're going to throw some wild cards out and see who wins, aka the house always wins. So hate to break it to you, but we'll see what happens here. So shuffling up, and we're going to start with your fifth favorite tech stack. In poker, we call this the river card. So
The river card.
let's go.
One of the old projects I worked on was codenamed River, so maybe that was my the fifth least favorite. So for coming in 5 here, and I'm including, it's really important, but I also think it's very specific to SaaS companies and companies that are starting up with things like cap tables and managing employee options and making sure you get all that right from the beginning, because it's really a pain to redo that stuff, or sometimes, could even be very difficult. Like it gets expensive with lawyers and stuff if you try to redo that stuff after your company has already formed and has settled a bit. So that coming in 5 for me is Carta, which is a platform that basically lets you do cap table management, can do like company document rooms. So if you were raising money, or you're doing something that's going through a legal review, you can create these document rooms that investors would look at. You can manage your employee options in there. So, it's not very glamorous, but this is one of the first things you'd probably look at as you're starting a company, specifically a corporation company. If you're doing a LLC or something like a sole proprietorship, you wouldn't have this complexity. But if you're doing a corporation, it's something you absolutely have to tackle. It's not glamorous, but it's necessary.
Awesome. So there's also a Carta office down on the street from me in Draper, the Silicon Slopes.
Oh, really?
And pre-Supered, I always wondered what it was. So it's fun that all these dots are connecting on how these softwares are starting and how founders are using them. So I love that.
Cool.
All right, we're going to pull our fourth card, which is our turn card. Give me your fourth favorite tech stack tool.
Yeah, so this was a new tool that I picked up at Supered, and I've really enjoyed it. It's called June. The domain is june.so. So it is basically a analytics platform for analyzing your product's usage. So a really important thing, especially as you're starting a company, is you have to have hypotheses of how you think people will use it, or you just need to know that people are using it, what they're finding valuable. And for us, June has actually been super useful. I used other tools in the past, and we actually have it, but I don't use it as much, something like Mixpanel. But I actually like June more because I can connect product usage into, say, a Slack channel. And Ashley, you actually know it because you see the Slack channel and you engage with it. But basically, when key events happen, we can push messages into the Slack channel that the whole company can see, and we can react if it's something that we see a pattern that we want to identify and ask them if they need help with anything, or understanding what users are using different parts of our product. And this is something that you can get by without this, I guess, when you're first building a product. But as soon as you start having users in your product and you're trying to understand how they use it, what could be better, who should I have a conversation with? Is this thing that we released actually valuable? Having that type of product usage is super useful. And another cool thing with this tool, and actually a lot of my tools on here are probably very low cost, which is also important for companies that are starting up that are trying to be, capital conservative. So I think June was one that we didn't pay for a little bit. We were using the free tier, and then eventually we leveled up into their paid seats. So they make it very easy to get started, very easy to use.
I love that you actually picked this one, like you said, because it actually affects the entire organization from top down. And I love that we can see what our customers are doing. We can be very human centric around how you make product teams all the way to how CS interacts with their customers on those products. So I love that you have chosen and highlighted this tool. All right, shuffling up, dealing out. We got our third favorite card. We call this the flop.
The
I don't
flop.
know who
Oh
named
no.
these, but this is the
Oh no,
flop
this is gonna
card.
be a bad
So,
one given what I picked for this one.
all right, let's go.
So I guess a non-flop, but what I picked for the third one is HubSpot. So uh, sort of a
That's
sort of an
ironic.
unfortunate naming convention, I guess here. So having something for tracking your pipeline early on is really important. I've been in a situation where we didn't track pipeline and didn't manage it with a little bit more rigor. And I've been, with Supered, we did it through HubSpot from the beginning and approaching it, thinking about our deal stages and the way people move and flow through it. And I can say that that is a much better solution than just trying to wing it. And
Mhm.
when I actually picked HubSpot at my previous startup before Supered as the CRM that I wanted to use for there. And part of the reason I picked it is for startups in particular, the feature set that you get in their free tier is actually very generous, especially compared to like other CRMs. And basically, this free tier is also one that can grow with you, which is pretty nice, where you get a lot of features, and then as you need things over time, you can activate a paid plan, and they have like startup programs and stuff that were very impactful to help bring our year one costs down and reduce year two costs. So that's, thinking from a financial perspective, I sort of like that aspect of it. But the actual functionality then was very powerful because it feels like what they're trying to do is create more of thinking of it less of a CRM and more of as a platform for businesses, in particular, helping small businesses. And it's not saying that they're a small business platform, but a lot of companies will say, well, since we're not a small business platform, we don't even want to cater to you. And they say, hey, yeah, well, we are a platform for enterprises, but we'll also let these small companies come in here and have access, and we're not going to just basically shut you out because you're not in our target audience. And so I think it's a very easy choice for small companies to pick HubSpot, but it's also one that can grow. And we've, as we grow Supered, we're growing our HubSpot and improving our processes and the way that we operate there.
I love that. This is my first company with HubSpot, to be honest. And I am absolutely loving it. And I'd echo everything you say there is coming from. This is my third startup, but first time startup with HubSpot. So,
You've
all
probably seen
right.
some of the processes solidify a little bit because it's probably gone from not much process to adding process in over time, adding better tracking, having better reports and dashboards. So you've seen the very base version of HubSpot as well when we didn't have as much
Right,
rigor.
right. For a product that supports HubSpot, for sure. All right. Okay, this is called the whole card. So I'm going to ask you to show me your second favorite
Yep.
tech stack tool.
Awesome. So both my one and two are actually communication related. And so this one is Slack. And the reason I'm picking this is you just, I mean, I guess if you're working with someone in person every day, you wouldn't need this as you're like starting up and starting a team.
Mhm.
But especially in the remote first world, and we're basically online more than we're in person. It's so important to have a good communication tool. And for me, I mean, I've used things other than Slack in the past, but Slack has just always been there as like a reliable service that's affordable, that has good features and good integrations. And developing that communication is just super important in the company. So if we think about things like, hey, how do we structure our channel so that people are, drawn to certain actions, like having channels to call out, call up good value examples. So as you see someone with exemplifying a core value or an operating principle, shouting that out, or giving people a space to ask challenging questions about like the product. So having like a technical place, and thinking about how we structure it is just as important as having it. So if you have it and you just let it go, do its own thing, it'll probably, get a little out of hand. So giving it structure is definitely important.
Agreed. Slack is the shell that every company needs. It's what you do with it. And I agree with you. I think in this remote world, building culture is very important. And Slack has so many great integrations and ways to do that to make the community feel connected every day. So, all right, here we go. Your ace in the hole. I hope it's a blackjack. No, we're playing five
We're
hand
playing
poker. I'm getting
poker.
confused here. I hope it's an ace because it's called the ace in the hole. So, number one tool.
I'm gonna have to go with Loom for this one. So it's another communication tool for recording videos. Um, my co-founder Matt is very good at creating clarity in communications and making sure that you understand a document or an email that he sends you. And one of the habits I picked up very early, like when I say very early, I mean like probably like the first email him and I had, it's like a thing he does from the beginning with everyone, is he'll send the email and he'll basically record a video of him going through the email himself and like walking through what he covered, so that you have both you're both reading it and understanding what he's writing, but you're also hearing it because maybe there's something that like was missed or some nuance, and so you can also share that. And so that act of recording videos is something we did and we still do like all the time, where as we're explaining a thought, hey, I have a proposal for X, also including a video walking through that proposal, and it actually like strengthens and creates clarity and makes it easier to get stuff done by just having these videos. It's very simple to do, and it's very cheap, but it's just that act of recording a video and attaching it to things that you write.
I'll have to agree with you. I did not expect you to say that. And as I'm hearing you, I'll have to agree with you. I think the impact that it brings across the board is very impactful and very unique to Supered and how Supered works with their partners and internal teams. So,
Yeah, and it's,
all
it's
right.
interesting.
Oh,
And I'm gonna jump in and just say it's
yeah,
interesting that
go for it.
um, I mean, when I put this together, I wasn't really thinking like, oh, communication tools would be my top two, but I think that's it's it's not intentional, but it's probably it's a good thing. It's communication and figuring out how you want to build the product, how you want to grow the team, what you're doing directionally, how you communicate with your prospects. It just makes everything so much easier. And so like Matt, for example, takes a lot of the communication principles we have and creates clarity with prospects, which makes it easier to do sales. And when it's easier to do sales, it's easier to grow the company. And so these things are trends, both internal and external, that just create clarity and make it so much easier to operate.
I love that. All right. So let's wrap up segment one. Let me recap. So we have Carta, we have June, we have HubSpot, Slack, and Loom. All right. Let's jump to segment two. I'm really excited to hear this from you. This is the high rollers corner, aka the wish list we could all FOMO that we could all belong to. What is the new and upcoming tool that you're hearing about, demoing, beta, anything? Where are you at in the tech world?
So what I put here, maybe uh, I'm sort of now second guessing myself, but I'm thinking about how I wanna approach it, because it's not very glamorous. It probably doesn't apply to a lot of people, but it applies to founders especially. which is I basically run a lot of the financials at Supered and with Matt, but I'm doing a lot of the budgeting and making sure we have like a forecast and tracking our accuracy each month. And when I started, we didn't have it, and we just sort of kept a finger in the air of like, all right, where's our MRR? Where's our headcount at? Let's make sure these things are generally aligned. And you really can do that for a certain amount of time, maybe like I don't know, like 6 months or so. But then you finally hit a point where you're like, all right, we're spending enough money. There's enough on the line that we need to be a little bit more intentional about finances. And every tool I looked at was like just really difficult to use. Like obviously you can do it in a Google Sheet, and then I just ran into issues of like, all right, I need to build this, and it's like, how am I? Like I'm not an expert in this. I'm just it's interesting to me, but I'm definitely not qualified as an expert. And so I was like, well, Google Sheets possible, but it's going to be real rough and probably only makes sense to me. And then you have like full on financial analysis suites that I'm like, that's a lot. Like that's not something I want to take on. The cost is very expensive. And I found one tool called Causal that I really liked because basically it sort of operates like a sheet, at least in terms of like how I experience it as a user. But you can basically create time-based projections and formulas and then interact with it with like a sheet. So I can say, all right, I expect like my MRR starts here and I want to have 7% growth a month. Where am I going to be 10 months from now? And I have these headcounts, these employees, and I want to hire this employee and this employee. Like, where can I fit them in? Let's do some testing where we put them in this month versus this month and see how it would affect the bank account. Do churn analysis. And it's very easy because it feels like interacting with the spreadsheet, but capturing that aspect of time and how things change over time is actually really difficult to do in a spreadsheet. Maybe if you're really good at it, unlike me, it's easy, but it's not for me. And so I really like this tool. And we're on the free tier, so I'm sure like it's, I also love tools that I can use and grow with and then make sure that they're going to work for us. And then finally, we hit a point where like, oh, we need something more serious. And then I can look at like paid tiers or, see what options are there.
Right. Founders supporting founders. I like that.
Yeah.
So cool. I love that. And I like how thoughtful you've been about the finance side and the admin side of the business. And so I do love that that is actually a tool in your tech stack tool. All right. This is your wildcard wish list tool. This is hypothetical for you. If you were creating anything and had all the time in the world, what would you create?
Yeah, this is a tough one. Um, Generally, one thing I found is that I am good at not chasing after things. So I'm like, I keep my focus and I'm like, all right, I'm focused on this problem. And I've been very good and like intentional about not even like thinking about what else I would want to tackle because it would ultimately like distract me from Supered. And so it's really basically like to me the thing that's interesting is like, hey, and the thing that gets me really excited is just thinking about like, hey, what's this future of Supered like, a year, 2 years, 5 years from now. And that's what gets me really excited. And so I even think about, hey, when we first started Supered, and we're really targeting this like HubSpot package builder, it was difficult to be like, all right, what's the market cap for this product and this tool? Like where can we take it? And it was high, but it wasn't like $1 billion SaaS high. And thinking bigger and thinking as things have changed over time, more and more, just this idea of changing how service companies, not just HubSpot service companies, but service companies in general, change and do their delivery and actually executing the way that they interact with their clients, the way they deliver learning, the way they're keeping track of the history with that client. And that to me is a thing I want to build that, right? Of just having the solution for that where every service company is using Supered because it makes it easier for them to actually operate and to serve their clients. In terms of, I mean, maybe if I was to say one thing that would be like, uh, something else would be, I'd love something that makes it easier for me to do some of the, like, it's actually really a weird thing, but like I've had a struggle with tools that do, um, like financial, personal and business, like financial planning. Uh, and I'd love to, it would be really cool to build a tool like that, like something like Mint shut down
Mhm.
recently, and they were a tool that I used. And I actually had looked at building sort of like a personal clone, and it was a lot, and so I stopped doing that. But that would maybe be a tool that if I was like not looking at Super, that would be an interesting problem to solve.
All right. That makes me, as a team member of Super, I'm very excited, and also hosting this podcast. I love your passion for growing and developing and building something amazing to help others too. So,
Thanks.
all right, let's go ahead and wrap up. Any final hands? You hiding any cards up your sleeve? Anything you want to share with us before we part ways?
Yeah. So not specifically tool related, but one of the things we talked about sort of in the pre-podcast is like how do you like how to think about this as a founder and how to stay focused on the problem. And tools are actually a very easy way to get distracted with not solving a problem. Because if you're thinking to yourself, well, I need to pick the perfect tool, I need to evaluate everything that's out there, I need to do all this, it's not actually usually solving the real problem. And so, keeping this sort of in a founder lesson mindset, I'd probably say one of the things is just do something when it comes to solving a problem. You have to solve communication. You have to solve the way you structure your company. You have to solve um, the way that you manage your deals. But if it distracts from the actual purpose of the company and delivering value and creating the product, then you should probably not get distracted and just pick something and you'll figure it out later if you need to change or if something's not right, and that's totally fine. That's not the same thing that applies to a $50 million company or $100 million company where a tool rollout can have huge impacts to the whole organization. It can cost millions of dollars, and that's just not the case for SaaS for startups. And it's just like just do
Right.
something and just stay focused on the actual reason that you're looking for it in the first place, which is to solve a problem.
Love that. Awesome. All right. Thank you, Steve. This has been so fun. I love that you gave me a glimpse into your mind and how your day to day works. So thank you so much for sharing. Excited for this podcast to air on all of the supered outlets out there. So looking forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley.
Let's shuffle up and show me your tech stack, where every episode is a high stakes reveal of the tools that are aces in our guest book, where chips are down and digital decks are on the table. Are you ready for the best in class tech? Let's deal these cards and see what comes up. Who's ready to double down on digital innovation with me?